Good evening, everyone, and welcome to what is going to be a fantastic evening that I'm very excited to be a part of. This is the agriculture, horticulture, and food production information session for the 2024 Churchill Fellowships. We have two fantastic speakers, as well as some more general information for those of you willing to and excited about submitting your idea to become involved with the Churchill Fellowship. My name, for those of you that don't know, is Costa Gerogiadis, and I am fortunate enough to have a connection with the Churchill Fellowship because I've been asked by many people, even one of our fellows, in fact, asked me for a reference a couple of years ago, which was fantastic. So I've seen and I work firsthand regularly with fellows who have taken their ideas, and I've even had fellows contact me and say, "What do you think of this? I'm thinking of going for a fellowship." And it's wonderful to see the angles and the ideas and how the Churchill Fellowship is all about incubating those ideas that you have. So don't underestimate anything. And it's just wonderful that you've taken this opportunity, given up your time, and you've joined this information session. And I can safely say that once you've heard from our two speakers, any doubts that you may have about submitting an application will be dissolved, because you just got to give it a go. The opportunity for you to pursue an area of your own interest, an area of your own expertise. As you know from the outline of the fellowship, this isn't about someone that has a degree. This isn't about someone that has certificates. You don't have to have those things to submit an idea and become involved and go off on your own fellowship of exploration. It's really a wonderful opportunity. And, you know, when I think about agriculture, horticulture, and food production, it's a perfect opportunity for me to take this opportunity and acknowledge that today I'm coming to you. I was only saying to everyone backstage before you all joined us, it's been a while since I've done a Zoom meeting. I got a little bit of muscle memory back there from how much time we all spent on Zoom. Seems like a long time ago, but it's not that long ago. But I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung country of the Kulin Nation, and I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and of all the lands that our speakers and all of you are joining us from. And as I said, when you think about agriculture, horticulture, and food production, that is all about caring for country. That is about looking after our land. That is about building that connection to the soil and the earth and the planet, and looking after it for generations ahead, but bringing the knowledge, that First Nations knowledge and information and care that has been there for so long. So from down here in Melbourne, a big welcome to all of you here in the webinar. It gives me great pleasure to get things underway by introducing you to Maddie from the Churchill Trust. And Maddie's going to give us a little bit of a background and give you all that nuts and bolts information that will, you know, as I think, push you over the line to step on up and get involved. So Maddie, lovely to be here. And where are you? Oh, there you are. Big welcome. Take it away and give all our all the people who have joined us today a bit of an outline of why this is such a great thing.
Thank you, Costa. As Costa has mentioned, my name's Maddie, and I'm the fellowship liaison at the Winston Churchill Trust. We are based in Canberra, the Ngunnawal Ngambri country. This information session is an overview of what Churchill Fellowships are all about, how you apply, and what we are looking for. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Welcome all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people watching this session, and would like you to know we have a strong cohort of First Nations Churchill Fellows, and we are building an active network. Bit of housekeeping. You'll be able to submit questions via the Q&A function. If you miss your chance or think of a question after the session, you can contact us directly via www.churchillfellowships.com.au, or you can email or phone, or our social media.
Oh, are you all
I'm
done?
just about to share my screen here.
Oh, okay.
When Winston Churchill resigned as British Prime Minister in 1955, aged 80, he had survived under 5 reigning monarchs, survived 3 wars, had been a writer, historian, journalist, adventurer, and painter, and won the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature in 1953. There was widespread desire to honour the great man and to capture essence of his public service, inspiration, intellect, and humour for generations to come. He wasn't perfect, and you can read some insightful essays on our website that explore Churchill through a contemporary lens. But he was a man who readily believed that anything was possible if you put your mind to it. That was the greatest figures in history, were those who made a contribution to public service and their fellow countrymen. When Prime Minister Menzies announced the news of Sir Winston's death to Australians in January 1965, he simultaneously announced the national fundraising event to establish the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust. On Churchill Memorial Sunday, 28th of February 1965, a door-to-door appeal was launched. Over 220,000 Australians participated with strong RSL support. Around 4 million raised, one of the largest public fundraising efforts in Australian history. It is the only time in our history that the banks opened on a Sunday so that the money could be deposited. If you have a passion for a subject you wish to investigate overseas, know what you are striving to achieve and desire to make a difference in your industry or community within Australia, then a Churchill Fellowship can help you realise your aspirations. Attributes of a Churchill Fellow. Churchill Fellows are the types of people who are passionate and committed to an issue. They want to learn and share knowledge so that others in their community might benefit. A Churchill Fellowship is a unique and prestigious opportunity open to Australians from all walks of life. It is not an academic scholarship or a funding grant. It isn't just an overseas trip. It is the start of a lifelong journey and contribution to Australia. To Australia. A Churchill Fellowship does not need to comprise formal research. You can learn new skills, build networks, and observe best practice in your chosen field. The fellowship is for overseas travel and must be for between 4 to 8 weeks, taken in one continuous journey. Over 4,700 fellowships have been awarded since 1965, and each year there is typically more than 100 awarded in Australia. Churchill Fellows travel across the globe on the widest range and depth of topics and bring back to this country information, networks, projects, products, ideas, and innovations which make this country even stronger. Just a few well-known innovations from Churchill Fellowships include Neighbourhood Watch, Crime Stoppers, Gardening Australia, supermarket unit pricing, and QuestionCon, just to name a few. Personality eligibility. To apply, you must be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident and over the age of 18 years by the application closing date of 1st of May. The ability to travel overseas is essential, and we can provide support if you have a disability. We now also offer virtual research options for people who cannot travel due to a disability or caring responsibility. And for people living in remote parts of Australia, we allow domestic travel. If this is you, then please call us to discuss. A Churchill Fellowship is an individual project, not a team project. There can only be one, so please keep that in mind if you apply. You can take someone if appropriate, such as if you need a carer. Speak to us about this if this is you. Keeping that in mind, we do support joint applications between Indigenous and non-Indigenous applicants on issues that are primarily First Nations business. If you are undertaking tertiary studies, that's okay. However, your proposed project cannot directly form part of that study, and you are expected to commit 100% of your fellowship, including your report and efforts, when you have returned. I need you to hear me say that a Churchill Fellowship is an opportunity for people from all walks of life, a phrase that gets thrown around, but for us, it is our mantra. Your project must be suitable for a fellowship and benefit the Australian community in some way. You need to be ready to bring back and share your knowledge, ideas, practices, or skills with passion. You must demonstrate that you have fully explored the topic within Australia to be considered. Your project must be a self-contained project. It cannot be part of a university degree or partially funded by another organisation. We are not the external travel budget department. Your proposed fellowship does not need to relate to your employment, but it can and often does. We don't set limits on the topics or issues. This is our strength. You choose your topic. We refer to it as a choose your own adventure. The beauty of a Churchill Fellowship is that you can design your own project. If you can think of a suitable topic that will bring benefits to Australia, then there are no limits. We also offer some sponsored fellowships where generous people or organisations have agreed to fund a fellowship on a particular topic. You can find all current sponsored fellowship opportunities on our website, and there is a link in the application form. So we encourage you to check these out. Some are more specific to locations or topics or issues. When framing your project, you must ask yourself how it will benefit to some aspects of Australian society. Do you know of somewhere overseas where they're doing things better? Applications close 5 p.m. AEST on 1st of May. So apply online from the Churchill Trust website. Applications can only be made using the online application system. You can't upload an application. Please talk to us if using the online form is a barrier to you. We don't want anyone to be turned away because they couldn't fill out the form. Remember, you are competing against all the other applicants. So how are you going to convince the selectors to invest in you and your project idea? You will also need to do a 60-second video pitch which is recorded online as part of the application. This is a short, raw video that outlines your motivation for applying and the benefit of your project to the community, telling us a little bit about yourself. Very important to think about now, you will need 2 referees or 2 references. 1, someone who can vouch for your personal characteristics. 2, someone who is an authority in your topic or field. You need to engage your referees as early as possible because your referees must submit their references through the application form by the deadline so that you can submit your application. Churchill Fellows have told the Trust many times that the process of completing the application form allowed them to fine-tune their project and its implementation upon their return. The online form is fully automated, allowing you to register your details and log in to your application as required throughout the application process. Do not leave it to the last minute, as you don't want to rush and you want it to put it in your best application. With your itinerary, limit your itinerary to the destinations that will be of most benefit to your project. Overcrowding an itinerary can lead to fatigue and maybe of less benefit to the project outcomes. So it is important in your application that you put forward the most complete itinerary that you can. Be as specific as possible in listing your proposed itinerary. For instance, you should include the town, state, and country. For example, Dallas, Texas, USA. There may be many Dallases, so write the state as well. Please include town, state, and country. Make sure you include all the countries that you would like to visit, along with the major cities within those countries that require air travel, and the purpose of your visit at each. For example, the purpose could be meeting, an interview, or an observation. Please be specific, as this information is used by us to cost your itinerary, and once it's approved, no additions can be made. Let's talk about selection process. This is the part that I'm sure you're interested in hearing more about and how this is done. We have panels and committees in each state and territory made up of people from across a range of fields and sectors. Applicants are shortlisted, taking into account referee comments. Interviews are held in each state and territory in person to help determine who will be recommended for a Churchill Fellowship. We prefer people to attend in person, but can accommodate video interviews by exception. The process is detailed in our website, including dates. About half of those people interviewed are likely to receive a fellowship. Making it to an interview is a significant achievement. The odds are good, but it is a competitive process. Selection recommendations are reviewed by our board and finalised and announced in September. There will be compulsory onboarding or a compulsory onboarding event for successful applicants in Canberra 24th to 25th of October. Pencil this in if you're feeling confident. We are often asked for tips in the application process. The best tips I can give you is to read and address the selection criteria. Use plain language, don't use jargon, be clear, succinct, and passionate. Here are some more tips. Focus on the need, what is compelling about your project. Is there some burning platform in the time right for this project? Benefits specifically. How will your new knowledge or skills benefit others? Who and why? Itinerary. You must show a need to travel overseas or why we should send you overseas. Have a clear focus. You don't know what you don't know, but you must be exploring something specific. Why have you chosen these places? Who Who will you be speaking with and why? I hope this helps you with your application process, and yeah, looking forward to seeing a new cohort of fellows.
Wow. Thank you, Maddie, for sharing so much valuable information for all the participants today, and a big welcome to anyone else who's joined over the last few minutes. I've seen a few more people come in and join us. Wow, it really is an amazing opportunity, and I was just listening. A couple of things that came to my mind there. No limit, like no limit on this opportunity. It's as limited as your and passion. That was the other word that Maddie mentioned. You got to show passion. There's lots of applicants, but there's 100 fellowships given out. So there's still odds there, you know, to refine that idea and get it in, and to be convincing. I like the idea of the video, but it's got to be short, because if you can't condense it into that lift pitch, well, you know, and that's a good thing, because that really hones in, and it's got to be raw. Don't make it this perfect thing, you know, because it's not about trying to sell, you know, a beautiful video. They want to see the raw truth, and that's where you can just be yourself. And I really love that. Like I say, 100 each year. And, you know, why do you want to go over? Why do you want to explore? And these are the sorts of things that I received, and listening to some of the things Maddie said there. I mean, Neighbourhood Watch, Questacon, really big things. And then Gardening Australia. I learned tonight, I did not know that Peter Cundall went on a Churchill Fellowship, and as a result, he got Gardening Australia up. And we're going into, like this week, we just started our 35th season. And when you think about the number of people around agriculture and food and environment that have been influenced by Peter's idea, by Peter's no limit, I'm going to give this a crack. And you know how much passion he has. And he was convincing, he got in, he did it. And now Gardening Australia last year gave birth to Gardening Australia Junior. So we're going deeper into generational change, which, you know, just that excites me beyond all description. And the fact that I see more than 100 people here, 100 people, your ideas matter. Just craft them into shape. And now we've got this awesome chance to meet two people that have done exactly that. And our first guest, our first fellow, who's going to speak with us tonight, is Holly Klintworth. Now, Holly was awarded a Churchill Fellowship in 2022 to undertake an internship with a reputable cognac distillery to learn the art of brandy production. She's the managing director and second generation distiller at her family business called Bass and Flinders Distillery. And she believes that Australian craft brandy is at a turning point, and she aims to support its growth and development in a bid to raise the profile and the potential of Australian brandy, both locally and internationally. So, Holly, great to see you there. Welcome, and take it away. I'm really keen to hear your story, as is everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Costa, for that lovely intro. And Maddie and the Churchill Fellowship for having me and allowing me to share my experience. I'm just going to share my screen. Here we go. We got that? All good? All right. So yes, so Costa introduced my project. So I was lucky enough to undertake my Churchill Fellowship last January and February of 2023. And yes, I really believe that there's so much potential in Australia for brandy production. It's not as widely produced or nearly as popular as other spirits out there like whiskey or gin, but I do honestly believe that there is going to be a place in the near future for brandy in Australia's drinking cabinets. And, you know, the thing that I love about brandy is that it's got this incredible sustainability story, because in years of wine glut, you can take leftover wine and value add and turn that into a premium product. So it's something that I've always been passionate about. And my dad started producing brandy in 2009. And so I took over running the business from him, and yet there was nowhere in Australia, there was nowhere to learn the skills and the art of brandy making. And so I did the few courses in distilling that are available in Australia, but nothing specific around brandy. So I very much wanted to travel over to what I would refer to as the mecca of brandy production, which is cognac. So cognac is the name of a brandy produced in the city of Cognac, in the country of France. So my internship, I took an internship in Cognac for 6 weeks, and I went over there basically to learn the art and craft of cognac production, planning to bring that knowledge back to Australia and share that knowledge within my industry. Next slide. Here we go. I forgot to move on to the next slide, but yes, the project: undertake an internship with a reputable cognac distillery to learn the art of brandy production. So I've just got a little collage of imagery. Most of my presentation is just pretty pictures, but I had the absolute time of my life doing this. You can see me there doing some cleaning in the distillery, and I was given some incredible information and data from all sorts of professionals in the industry. A lot of it was actually in French. So you'll see later on, I touch on the hours it took me to complete my report, and it was a lot of hours, but part of that was a bit of translation, because I, funnily enough, don't speak any French. But I did walk away from the 6-week internship with some very technical French words, because they were the words that the French were struggling to translate into English. So there's some pictures, and just going to talk through very briefly, I guess, 3 of my highlights from my Churchill Fellowship. First one I put here is meeting 8th generation distiller Monsieur Guillotot. Domaine Guillotot is a very small distillery that's actually owned by Courvoisier now. And interestingly, over in Cognac, the way it operates is the big 4, the Remy Martin and Hennessy and Courvoisier, Martel, they actually contract out to lots of tiny family-owned distilleries, and then they collect all of that spirit and they blend that together and they mature that and they produce their premium brandies, their cognacs. So actually going over to Cognac, one of the questions I was asked in my interview process was, are you really sure that the French are going to give you any information? What makes you think the French are going to want to give away their secrets? But interestingly, over in France, they have a similar problem, just like we do in Australia, in that brandy isn't seen to be as cool as whiskey or rum. 97% of all cognac produced in France is actually exported. So they also have a bit of a reputation problem with cognac in France. And so that when I got there, they said to me, look, you know, we're just happy that someone is passionate about brandy as we are. And if you can help us convert more people into having an interest in this spirit, that's great. And we're happy to help you, and we're happy to share our knowledge with you. I guess the other aspect is you can't call brandy cognac unless it's produced in the city of Cognac. And so they probably also knew right from the very start that no one is ever going to be able to replicate what they do in Cognac. And that's okay, because my intention was always to bring that knowledge back and implement that in Australia amongst Australian climate and Australian vineyards. And we are going to be producing some very Australian brandies that do not reflect cognac, but, you know, so they were very open, and there's no such thing as an 8th generation distiller in Australia. It's just the industry is too young. So being able to meet Monsieur Guillotot and him showing me some 100-year-old apparatus was just really special, and it kind of reinforced that the industry that I'm in, especially in the maturation of dark spirits, are really putting down spirit today for generations to come. So that kind of meeting an 8th generation distiller really reinforced my passion. Another highlight was working with owner distiller Francois Merry of Merry Melrose Cognac. The cuts, the distillation cut, that's when the spirit's coming out at the end of the still at a steady stream, and it's the distiller's job to smell and taste and determine when to separate the different spirit, the different aspect of that spirit coming through, what to use and what not to use in that spirit. So having hands-on experience, getting to smell and taste with him was an incredible opportunity for me, and I learned a lot through that process, as was the actual cleaning. He was very kind, and he was shocked that I wanted to get inside the still and do the cleaning for him. He was telling me, look, it's not a nice job. You don't have to do it. I don't expect you to do it. But I was very insistent of getting inside and scrubbing away. And I learned lots of different cleaning techniques, which is just as important when it comes to producing premium brandy. So that was a really great experience too. And then my third highlight was really just swapping knowledge, sharing spirits, and gaining feedback from distillers. It was really special to be able to take over my family's brandy, show that to the distillers over there, get their feedback, get their input, because that was another really incredible way of learning for me, being able to swap stories, challenges, and just listening to how they've overcome their own challenges, and realizing that we all make the similar mistakes, and that there's ways around that, and there's always ways to improve the quality of your spirit. So it was beautiful experience traveling around with my dad's brandy and sharing that, and learning from people through those casual discussions as well. And then something unexpected, I guess, out of my experience over there was just the sheer number of professionals and contacts and friendships that I developed during my time in Cognac. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this being the approach, but I went over with quite a clear 6-week schedule, having a few contacts and then promising me that they would introduce me to people. And I was a little anxious going over there because my schedule wasn't yet filled. But the moment I got there, the doors opened, conversations happened, and I was struggling to find the time by the end to do everything that I wanted to do in that 6 weeks. But I was introduced to different family distilleries. I was lucky enough to be introduced to the master blender at Hennessy and Courvoisier and Remy Martin, and given some private tours of their facilities. I met barrel management team, lab technicians, an ex-university lecturer who didn't speak any English but gave me a whole stack of French documents that I spent a lot of time translating and were incredibly valuable. And the French regulatory body, barrel makers, so a whole host of different industry contacts that I made while I was over there, which was incredible. What have I achieved since returning home? I have done completed my 64-page report. It got published. I was very proud and very relieved. 100 hours. The caveat there is, yes, you probably won't need to take as much time as me. It's just that a lot of the stuff that I was doing was translating, and I was listening to voice recordings of conversations and sometimes struggling with the accent a little bit. So that's probably why it took me a little bit longer than normal. But it was a really great way to kind of relearn everything that I'd learned and kind of, excuse the pun, but distill down all those learnings into kind of bite-sized pieces that I could then share easily with the industry as well. I've implemented a bunch of changes in my own production methods. I guess one of the biggest things I learned was it's not just about the distillation, it's equally about the quality of the wine that you distill, as well as how you treat that spirit in the barrel for years after. So my focus became on how I can improve all three of those facets to ultimately improve our brandy production. So a lot of trials and R&D are underway, but the one thing about producing brandy is that it does take time. So I've started some projects, but I'm not going to know how those projects pan out for probably for years. So it is a long game when it comes to brandy. I've had ongoing conversations, visits, and discussions with fellow distillers in the industry, and you know, I have people come up to me at industry events and thank me for the report, and I don't even have a view of who's downloaded it or who's read it. So I'm really grateful when people come up to me and tell me that they found it really useful. So that's been incredibly fulfilling for me. And then, yeah, the best thing about being a Churchill Fellow is really the lifelong friendships and connections forged during my internship, the positive feedback that I've received. And yeah, spending that time over there has really given me a lot of confidence in what I'm doing in my field, and a lot of inspiration too has come from that, ideas, new product ideas, and a lot of pride in being able to tell people that I'm a Churchill Fellow. And yeah, of course, being able to contribute to the development of my industry is really exciting as well. So yeah, just to wrap up, because I think I'm probably almost out of time, but tips for the application process, I would say, yeah, choose your references carefully, because they can really help you frame your thinking and help talk through how you would want to see your Churchill Fellowship pan out. And remember too that the purpose of the Churchill Fellowship is to gain that new knowledge, but also to share that and promote that amongst your peers. So that was what I really focused on in my application process. So don't forget to focus on that too. And that's me. So I guess just to kind of conclude, you can probably tell from my stories and my photos that my Churchill Fellowship was just the most incredible opportunity for me, and I hold it dear to my heart. And the learnings that I've gained and the experience that I've had, you know, it was really a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I certainly encourage all of you listening, if you haven't already applied, to apply and to take up this opportunity to follow your dream or passion, and give yourself that permission to immerse yourself in something that you really care about. So thank you.
Wow, Holly, thank you so much for sharing that story. And there's already some great questions coming in. So thank you everyone or those of you that have put some questions in already. We will get to those in the Q&A. There's already some for Maddie and a couple for you, Holly. Really, really thoughtful questions and pointed questions about details around applications and how and so on, how you went about it. The thing I can't miss in what you're saying, like, where do you get a chance to meet an 8th generation distiller just off the cuff? You can't ring up 1-800 8th generation. You can't just go online and easily meet these people. And what came through, and what is the reality of this, is that the fellowship is like a big crowbar, but really actually it's a key, and it opens up everything you were talking about, because it's a key of trust. People respect that when you ring and you say, I'm associated with this brand, this trust, they put trust. It's a trust, and they put trust in you, and you put trust in them. And the fact that you got knowledge, feedback, input, stories, that you learned about the challenges, you know, the professional contacts, all of these things. You don't just get leads like that unless you're deeply immersed. And the fact that those leads came once you were there, you can't craft the whole thing. And that's probably a good thing for people to think about. If you're listening to this, you need to set the framework solid, and then there's things that are going to come. And the fact that you met a master, a blender, the technicians, the lecturers, the barrel masters, all of those things, that's phenomenal. You can't just get that information anywhere. So thank you so much for sharing, Holly, and we'll get to some questions for you and no doubt Gavin and Maddie shortly. So I'd like to go straight into our next special guest so that we can get to Q&A as well. Now, Gavin Hardy, he was awarded a Churchill Fellowship in 2020 to investigate the potential of community food forests and orchards. And off he set. Gavin is a community food growing facilitator and permaculture educator. He's a respected figure here in Australia's community food scene, and a multi-award winning landscape architect, qualified engineer, and he worked as a senior landscape architect in local government, running also his own design practice. So Gavin setting off on this garnered so much, and here's our chance to hear from Gav. So take it away, Gav. I don't know if you're muted, Gav.
Yeah, thanks, Costa, and lovely introduction, mate. I really love that. And yeah, so I'm just going to take you through my Churchill Fellowship. I looked at community food forests and community orchards. I'm going to explain what a food forest is because most people don't really know what a food forest is. Yeah, and as Costa said, I travelled in 2020. I got the Churchill Fellowship in 2020, but I didn't travel until 2022. Yeah, so moving on to the next slide, hopefully. No, it's not going to move on for me. Here we go. All right, so yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm the Queensland State Coordinator of Community Gardens Australia. I'm the Adult Education Coordinator at one of Australia's largest city farms called Northey Street City Farm, one of the largest community gardens in Australia. And as Costa said, I'm a permaculture educator, landscape architect and qualified engineer. So my Churchill Fellowship, my aim was to investigate the potential of community food forests and orchards for Australia. I visited 5 countries. I went to the USA, Canada, the UK, the Netherlands, and Italy. I visited 10 places sort of officially, that was in the plan. But as Holly alluded to, you know, you go to these places and then you get talking to someone and that leads to something else. And eventually I actually visited 51 project sites in 63 days, which seems like a lot, and it was. But I managed to squeeze that all in over that 9 weeks from August to October 2022. So just a little bit of a sidetrack into what is a food forest. So I get asked this question all the time. So a food forest sort of mimics the patterns found in a natural forest. It has vertical layers. So have a tall canopy tree and maybe a smaller tree below that, and then shrubs below that, herbaceous layer below that, and vines and ground covers. But most of the plants in them are food plants for human beings, and they've been around for a very long time. So there's one in Morocco, for example, which has been in continuous use for 2,000 years, or at least the oral tradition of that place goes back 2,000 years. So they're highly sustainable and resilient places, and they utilise long-lived plants arranged in guilds. So some of the highlights for me, I'm just going to read a little bit from my Churchill Fellowship report, just in the summary section. So I'm just going to read this out to you. So there were many wow moments, harvesting and gardening events in Seattle, Victoria and British Columbia, London and Rotterdam were such fun and so full of connection that I had visceral experiences of the physical and mental health benefits of community orchards. This experience was validated by the stories I got from other participants and from a visit to a large orchard in a psychiatric hospital in London. In Miami, I met children who told me that their school's food forest is helping them learn about science, maths, biology, gardening, and nutrition. In Italy, I was given a masterclass on the urban biodiversity benefits of community food forests, and I was blown away by the yields of tens of thousands of kilograms that groups are harvesting from urban orchards. I had amazing insights with the world's leading food forest designers in the USA, the UK, and the Netherlands, and I learned how not-for-profits provide services and motivate their volunteers and sustain livelihoods. So I had a pretty amazing time. And yeah, it was was a really good trip. It was a lot of fun. I got up into trees. I was harvesting from fruit trees on various occasions, climbing ladders. Fell out of a ladder once, but it was okay. Met great people and have maintained connection with them, who I now regard as my peers. I actually met Costa through this process. Costa became one of my referees during this process, and it's been fantastic to have that connection. Yeah, so really great time overall. So the unexpected, so one of the really unexpected things I found was a lot of these community not-for-profits engaging in partnerships with restaurants and food service providers, brewers, so turning apples harvested from community orchards into apple cider, for example, food processors, and they're sort of promoting their organisation and making some money out of it at the same time. It's all part of their way of funding their enterprise. And also there's some of the really unusual foods. I came across a place in not in British Columbia, in Seattle, the Beacon Food Forest, and they're growing 1,000 species of edible plant on their 4-acre food forest. It's just incredible, the range and variety of foods that we are not eating. Yeah, that was pretty unexpected. Achievements on return back to Australia. I've done numerous speaking events. I've appeared on radio talking about and promoting food forests and agroforestry in general. I've been involved with organising urban agriculture events and speaking at them, and also educating around food forests and agroforestry. Impact, I've been raising the profile of community-based food growing in general, so community gardens, community orchards, verge gardening, community food forests, and a whole plethora of other ways of doing community food. I've been really getting into this, raising the profile. I've been developing a model around community food types and ways of growing food. And I've just started doing a little bit of integration with one of the universities here in Brisbane around looking at research opportunities with agroforestry in the public space. My project's really a slow cooker project. It'll take a long time to get things really up and going, and I'm spending a lot of time just sort of quietly promoting the idea of food forests in the public space. It'll take some time. One of the best things I've found about being a Churchill Fellow is my ideas are now being taken seriously. And I think, as Costa was saying, being a Churchill Fellow just opens up doors for you. People really, really respect the institution of the Churchill Fellowship. And it's great to be able to have peer-to-peer conversations and also, talk with other people about what I'm doing. It's a pretty out there idea, what I'm talking about and what I'm into. But it's great to see that I'm being taken a bit more seriously with what I do. My advice around preparation, I was thinking about this the other day, and I sort of distilled it right down to just being really bold and backing yourself about your idea and being prepared to reach out to people. In the end, I think I had about 12 of my peers and friends helping me with the application. So, and that was really handy. It was really helpful for me to be able to bounce ideas off people and get a successful application through. And then, time and commitment, I really haven't found any really additional burden with being a Churchill Fellow. It's a really fantastic opportunity. And it's just, open, like I said, it's opened so many doors for me. So, if you're thinking about applying, do it. have a go. But yeah, get your preparation right, and you'll have a good chance of being successful. So thank you. Thanks for listening, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions at the end of this presentation. And there's all my contact details there. So thank you.
Yeah, fantastic, Gavin. And there you go, everyone. There was a question about connection with alumni, and that's exactly what the Churchill Fellowship is about. It is about building this fellowship of people, and there's Gavin's details are right there. And that's a beautiful thing, because he talks about backing himself, and he's backing you by sharing his information and sharing his story, so that you can freely reach out and don't hesitate to. And that's what I really like what you said there, Gav, about like backing yourself, reaching out, being receptive to the unexpected, that whole idea of human connection. And Holly, you said it as well, like your human connection. Everything you spoke about, Holly, was about human connection. And Gavin, you're the same, whether it was in the UK or the US. And I think that the one thing I'll finish off before we go into some questions is like that idea. You refined that with 12 people. Someone else may have refined it with their 3 key people. But the main thing is just keep refining it. And if you don't get it this year, just try again. Like, don't think that the door slams. This Churchill Fellowship is about opening doors. It's about building connections. It's about that key, and all of us handing the key around, not saying, oh, well, I got the key, you know, you miss out, sort of thing. This is what it's about. Now, where the beauty of this, and for those of you, there was another question that came in that says, oh, how do I know which one of these sessions to come to? Don't worry, either of them works, but go to all of them, because you get to meet the Gavins and the Hollies, so that you can get the different angles, but they're all threaded together. So we'll go to a couple of questions here, because there's now, for those of you who are perhaps watching the replay, look at the Q&A, because Maddie's been answering. Maddie and the Churchill Trust team have been answering questions. So even if you're watching the replay, you can get the answers, and of course you can contact the team. That's the main thing. But a question for Holly from Kate. Thanks for the question, Kate. How did you make contact with these places and ensure your ability to receive the internship? Was this done in the application stage of the process or post-acceptance?
Thank you, Kate. Sorry, I'm struggling to restart my video, but I'll just talk. Yeah, it was a hard one, actually, because I found out. Here we go. I found out, I think, in October that I had been awarded the Churchill Fellowship, and then I left in January. So I decided to wait until I was sure, because I knew it was a really busy time for the distillers starting out their distillation process. But I already had some contacts on ground that I knew I could reach out and start putting fillers out pretty quickly. But it was a bit of a balance for me. I waited until I received it. Yeah.
Yeah. Gav, do you have anything to add to that question from your experience?
Yeah, so I contacted potential people to visit early, and look, some of them didn't get back to me. I got no response, but enough did, and that was important. And then, you know, like I said in my presentation, it just rolled on from there. Like I just met more people as I kept on going. So I managed to develop a schedule, a framework that I could work with, and there was enough sort of gap in it so I could. And that's a really important thing. Don't cram in too much in your original schedule. You need to, I think, you know, allow a bit of room to those opportune moments that are unplanned for, to be able to go 50 Ks, you know, from Rotterdam down to a garden down there and check that out for a half a day. I think that's really important to think about. Expect the unexpected.
And that's exactly what Holly was talking about. Like she got contacts from within the contacts.
Yeah.
You can't get those unless you have that openness. But as you both said, having that space in there to allow those contacts. And you go to that contact and then they say, go down the road here. It's like, you know, someone contacting you and then they say, oh, contact Costa. And then I say, oh, contact Naomi from Community Gardens Australia. And then she says, I'll go and check out this group. So, you know, that, yeah, great answers. Thanks for that. And I think, Maddie, if you don't want to add to that, I think we could fold into this next question, which is, could you be more specific about the actual deliverables expected on completion of the fellowship? Do you want to start with that one, Maddie, and then you know, Holly and Gav, feel free to throw something in.
So I'm imagining having completed your fellowship travels. So after having completed the travels, you have 10 weeks to put together your report. So we have Rose at the Trust, and she's the in charge of reports, and she's the one that liaises with them at post-fellowship. And with that, you can do, or it can be a written report, or it can even be a video or podcast. But yeah, it is hard work. It is, it's not just a little simple report. Some of them are like 100 pages long and so forth, and very in depth, and just they will portray what you can bring it to the community in many ways with all that information. And yeah, it's all about what you can do, showing what you've learnt overseas and bringing it back to Australia and creating change.
Yep. Now there's a couple of other questions. Sharon Casey asked, is it okay to choose a scholarship outside of my professional field? I imagine that's
yeah, absolutely. It can be personal
okay.
interest. Yeah, it doesn't have to be in your profession.
And then, is there ongoing support for Churchill Fellows that can help overcome social and political barriers to implementation of the knowledge faced back home in Australia? So, yeah, what do you think, Maddie? And then what do you think about that one from your experiences, Holly and Gav?
Fellowship. Yeah, there's lots of post-fellowship opportunities, which we love supporting people with, because we realise that is a very important aspect. So it's not just about gathering the information, it's how you can implement it and create change. And there's even funding that can be applied for.
Yep. Anything to add to that, either of you?
Yeah, well, I guess couple of things on that. Like I was saying before, you know, just the fact that the Churchill Fellowship opens up all these doors. You know, for me, I just have a network of peers now and some of them are actually Churchill Fellows who also worked in this sort of area in the community food space. And I think that's providing a bit of leverage, because we can work together on projects and on forums and that sort of thing. And then the other, I guess, more direct stuff is I have attended one of the seminars on impact funding that the Churchill Trust has offers fellows. So there is that opportunity to explore your ideas even further through their impact funding mechanism. And I know there's other mechanisms. I guess Maddie can talk more about that. Other opportunities that the Churchill Trust offers directly to fellows. Yeah.
Yeah. What's been your follow-ups, Holly?
I'm aware that the Churchill Fellowship, the Churchill Trust does support follow-ups ongoing, and that there's some funding, you know, even just to kind of print and disseminate hard copies of your report. I haven't personally done any of that yet, but I do know that there's a lot of support there.
Now, here's one for both of you from Shane. Stefan, did you both get the fellowship first try?
Yep. Yes.
I did too. Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
There you go, Shane.
Yep.
That's a good question. Michael McKenna is a fellow distiller and a permaculture educator, so he's getting inspired by both of you. This is stereo inspiration for Michael. do the references have to have a good idea about the scope of your project, or just provide more information the applicant and their passion for the topic?
Yeah, something I said, one of the referees needs to be an expert in the field as such. And then one is just a character referee.
Yep. That's I think that's answered that one for you, Mark. Thomas, thanks for the question. Jody asked about can you stay on and traveling along with family? What's the view of bringing children and carers along? Is that I think you mentioned that, Mandy, that's all okay?
Yeah, it's okay. I guess the big thing is like with the fellowship, obviously that is what your focus is with the actual fellowship time, but you are welcome to take your family. Like, it's something we encourage that maybe afterwards and have in the family time, just because otherwise you might miss out on impromptu opportunities with meetings and so forth. You might choose family over that those kind of opportunities. Not saying you can't take family, definitely you can.
Now we've got Juan, although apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly, Juan. And this is an interesting one, because they said, if the Churchill Trust has sponsored a fellow in a subject in the past 5 years, what's some of the considerations that would go into an application in a similar topic? And that's an interesting one, Gav, because you think about yours and, you know, what you did, say, compared to Naomi Lacey. Naomi Lacey went in from Community Gardens Australia, and she sort of studied the peak community garden bodies to further our own organisation here in Australia. And you sort of took that line of community growing, but from a food forest point of view. So there's angles, isn't there? And I imagine from Juan's point of view, it just comes down to how, is this correct, Maddie, that you just have to, it's like I suppose, writing a thesis. You just have to find your topic and refine it, in the sense, like, I just want to go and visit community gardens. Like, that's,
yeah, I mean, obviously you have your slant on it, and it's about what you can present and how that, I mean, it's yes, someone else might have done it, but how are you going to benefit the community as well? So surely you've got your slant and your expertise and the different people you want to meet and see and gather information from.
Yeah, and in the process of making that application, you're going to be looking at the, you know, I looked at other Churchill Fellows, who'd done a fellowship in the past, and I was looking at their travels and their reports, and I was thinking, oh yeah, they've already done that. That's great information. I can use that, but they haven't quite done the thing that I'm into, and it's actually helped me refine and really get sharp on what was the question I was actually trying to answer. It actually took me a very long time to get to that question, because I was just trying to scope out what everyone else had done in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything to add there, Holly?
I mean, I was just thinking in my head, if I had an opportunity, I would.
Yeah, you crafted it.
I would go back and do a Churchill Fellowship just on the wine, and then just on the barrel maturation, and then there's so much more yet to be uncovered just in the brandy space, and I don't think that my report covered it all. I think you could have 10 more reports. So I think I agree, it's just about the angle you take.
Fantastic. Rochelle asked an interesting question, Maddie. Like, my questions about lessons learned regarding projects that were awarded but may not have delivered, like those kinds of lessons about why projects don't work are equally as valuable. What can you add to that, Maddie?
Oh golly, that's a good question. So I guess it's yeah, there's lots in that question. There's lots of elements of how lessons learned about what hasn't worked. As I could say, it can be about how you engage with the community afterwards, or it might be about the content. I'm not sure. and the way it impacts people. Maybe actually getting more assistance about it once you've come back, and knowing how to present the information in a good way. And yeah, so we have a lot of support. So I guess the big thing is getting support when you come back, seeing what options are available there.
And I think the other thing is that how do you know whether your how do you really know whether your project doesn't have an impact? Doesn't have an impact because you know, I did pick up Peter Cundall's report and have a look at it. You know, 30 or 40 years after he wrote it, like someone's going to pick up my report, maybe 10 or 15 years down the track, and I won't know who they are, but they might then roll with that and take that somewhere. So all this stuff's really useful. That you might not be that immediate.
Mm.
And Rochelle was just saying lessons about why projects failed is what I'm getting at, and I suppose that's the benefit of being able to see the reports and understand what it was and unpack the direction that it took and why it went that way. I suppose that's what she's getting at. Now, how are we for time there, Maddie?
Yeah, it's about time we finish, but there were some good questions, and I hope that if anyone still has some burning questions, do reach out to us.
Yeah, there's a ripper here about joint applications from Heidi. Hi, Heidi. Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal can put in together. But if the project has a strong cultural focus and applies internationally, can a male and female Aboriginal people apply together to ensure cultural protocol and gender sensitivities, as opposed to going it solo and potentially missing out on info because it's gender and culturally barriered? I'm asking as an Aboriginal person interested. Great question. Maddie?
Yeah, so which one were you particularly wanting? The last one? The Aboriginal.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec. I might grab. I've got Sally here with me.
Hey, Sally.
Hi, Costa. Hi, everyone. Okay, so this is a good question. We can have two Indigenous people on a project. Generally, we've gone for Indigenous and non-Indigenous only because we want to make sure that the non-Indigenous person who's involved, that there is an Indigenous person if there's a focus on an Indigenous issue. But by all means, we can look at two Indigenous people on a joint project. Look forward to reading it.
Thank you. Well, everybody, thank you for those questions. They've really opened up. We've had, close to 40 questions come through, and the team from the fellowship have been answering those questions. So if you jump in the chat, you'll be able to see some of those really technical questions that just needed a specific answer that Maddie and the team have been Neha and the team have been answering. I don't know the details of when the next sessions are, but do yourself a favor and get along to them, because if you get a chance to hear from Holly and Gavin equivalents who have had these experiences with another slant of a story, it doesn't get better. It really doesn't. You're hearing from people that have been sitting on your side of this session, and now they're sitting in the session giving you their experiences. So I've really enjoyed this session. It's been fantastic. I want to give a big thanks to Holly and Gavin for giving us their time and sharing their insights and giving us those structural details that really can help guide and positively support you at this stage of your application. And I hope that it just gives you that nudge and says, come on, listen to what they had to say and look at where it's taken their lives now. They're just totally different people, connected in totally different ways with a worldwide web of people that you just can't get on the World Wide Web, let's say. That's a bit of an interesting little contradiction, but I like it. Is there any?
That's absolutely true. And people tell us they learn a huge amount just from the process itself. So have a go.
Yeah. Anything final you want to wrap up with, Maddie?
No, just this is recorded and it'll be on our website. And applications open 1st of March.
Oh, 1st of March. Rip in, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, look up the next session and get along. And we really look forward to seeing how many of you translate a session like this into an application, because the team's waiting. And at the end of the day, remember, they want to give these fellowships. That's what they're there for. It's just a matter of you know, as Gavin said, you know, reaching out, backing yourself, and having a crack. And yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining in. And again, thanks, Gavin, Holly, and Maddie and the team at Churchill. It's been a pleasure to be involved. Ciao, everyone.